Hello, welcome to the entertainment jungle. Today, we're going to talk about the evil version of the bear. Or at least that's what I thought this was when I was going into it, right? It's a new movie on Amazon Prime called House of Spoils, and we're going to talk about it up next on the entertainment jungle. Right? Does anyone else watch The Bear?
Yeah, no, I think that's close.
They're close enough, right?
Or like that other movie, The Menu. Did you ever see that one?
The Menu.
Oh, did you find way better than this one? Wait a minute.
Whoa,
I don't want to bury
spoilers, man.
Spoilers right away. Anyway, all right, so we're going to talk about House of Spoils, new movie on Prime, and I want to jump into it pretty quickly. So I'm going to tell you the IMDb description, which doesn't bode well for this movie the way the first sentence starts out, and you can tell me if you agree or not. So, according to IMDb, it says, it tells the story of a chef who opens her first restaurant where she battles kitchen chaos, a dubious investor, and self-doubt. But the pressure heats up thanks to a spirit of the estate's previous owner who threatens to sabotage her. I brought that up because when it says, first of all, yeah, the end of that also is a little weird. We'll get into that in a second.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't really make sense.
But when it says it tells the story of a chef, I'm like, all right. Usually they don't explain the story you're gonna
That
see.
it tells the story of something. Yeah.
So I thought that's a little weird. But let's start with overall thoughts on this one. I think we're gonna get Walter all of his thoughts right now. But what are your overall thoughts on this one?
I mean, you're correct because I really don't. I don't think I have much on this one. I'm more confused. I'm not sure. Like last week, we watched a movie that was supposed to have witches, and this one we kind of watched a movie that was kind of a witch or not. I was a little confused. I was very confused about everything that was going on over here, especially what was the name of the main character? Does anybody know?
No idea.
Really? Was it really Chef?
I looked it up.
Oh, okay.
She has no name. According to
okay.
It's just Chef. Yeah.
So
A girl has no name.
That makes the movie great because how are you supposed to care about a character? They didn't even give the day of time or time of day to even give him a name, which is ridiculous. So
that is kind of funny.
This was a hard one to watch. I felt like I was watching a Netflix movie, but we'll go into it.
All right, Ryan the Lion, what do you got?
Well, I will say that a character doesn't always need a name for you to care about it. Like Ryan Gosling's character in the movie Drive was just the driver. That was a pretty good movie.
Okay.
However, this was not a very good movie, so it did not help that the character did not have a name. Yeah, I didn't think that the performances in this were that bad, but I mean, the story was kind of a mess. And I really didn't care about the characters, what was happening, why things were happening. Just, it really did not in any way get me invested in the story.
Yeah, I mean, this one, it had a lot of. I did also think that it was funny that this was about witches. And I thought the other one called Salem's Lot was going to be about witches. So I did think that was kind of funny. This is going to bring up something in a little bit later about horror movies in general, specifically, I would say about witches maybe, but just a horror movie in general. I'm going to it's going to pose a question to both of you that I don't watch a lot of horror movies, but I see a little bit of a trend that I want to know.
I feel like we do watch a lot of horror movies now.
Maybe we do, yeah.
Are you talking about the genre or just how bad these movies we've been watching are?
They are horrific movies.
So I want to start off with, in my opinion, extreme close-ups of food being cooked and being eaten is kind of disturbing to me. I don't know if anyone else.
The close-ups of it being eaten is disgusting.
Right? It just seems like that's what they lean on with some of these kind of movies, even if it's not about the the restaurant kind of business. I want to start off with something maybe good, which was her Ariana's performance in this. I actually thought she did pretty good considering the material, right? Like,
I thought she did I mean, honestly, I thought the performances were a strength of the movie.
Yeah,
in general, I thought she did a nice job. I thought that the other girl, that like her sous chef, did a nice job. The performances actually didn't even bother me.
Yeah, and it's hard to portray that that chef, that fine dining chef that they're doing in The Bear. Like, I thought they pulled off that part a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But that was just the only positive of the whole movie, though, was just their performance.
Yeah, I thought the opening scene that scene in that first kitchen was really good.
Yeah, and I liked how it introduced the chef, which comes in later. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was pretty good too.
Yeah.
I want to kind of talk about once she gets it. So it starts off. This premise is kind of weird to begin with. Like, all right, so she's she's been working in fine dining for a long time. Then she wants to have her own restaurant, fine. But her own restaurant is with this weird investor in the middle of nowhere. Like, why would that... Like, I thought that was like a weird plot point right off the bat. Did anyone else think that was like a weird situation to go into? I don't know.
Yeah, let's throw away all that time and education and blood, sweat, and tears that you've done for years to go with this other high-profile chef to go to the boonies where you are destined to fail.
Well, also, when she got there, it seemed as though they had not discussed what the plan was. Like, he was like, oh, yeah, like, it'll be, like, you'll go to, like, gardens and things. And she's like, I don't do anything like that. It's like, you guys didn't have a business plan here? Like,
nope.
You didn't know what you were going to do with this business? You just have a building and a chef, and you're like, we nailed it.
But did they really have a building? The building was like rotten before the fake spoiled food shows up. The building was like the building wasn't really clean. Didn't she have a whole montage where she was like cleaning it and getting it ready and all that kind of jazz?
Yeah,
he bought a building. He didn't do anything with it other than buy a building.
Well, that goes into your point. There was no prep to this. He just had
that's what I mean. Like, other than he had bought a building and hired a chef, and no other legwork had gone into this business.
But hired is really loose there because I have no idea why she would have quit, because it felt like from the get-go it was a trial run, because you're like, I'm going to have you as my other chef, and we don't know at that point in the beginning of the movie what happened to him. But then it's like, you still need to impress all these investors. So it's like, you don't have the job yet. Why would you quit your other one? Like,
and it's really when she's trying to quit, he's like, I'll double your salary. And I'm like, usually in movies, he just gets mad. He's like, oh, F you. Yeah. But he was like,
no, he was not a bad guy.
So when he's like, I'll double your salary, and then she shows up and like she has to like clean everything with her own toothbrush. I know it's not her own toothbrush. You get the point. I was like, wow, she made a terrible decision right away.
Yeah. With an investor that was very shady.
Yeah.
I guess, you as like a creative like person, like you want to put your stamp on things. So like I get that. And I mean, I think I did get the sense that she had this job, but at the same time, investors can always change things if they want. So like, even if you hire someone and you're like, this is our guy, and the investor shows up and they're like, well, I hate him and I won't give you money if you use him, then suddenly that person isn't the guy anymore.
But shouldn't have they done that process first before you just up and quit?
But that's my point, is that all of the things that should have been done did not happen, except he got a chef in a building and did nothing else.
So
he didn't run it past his investors. He didn't have a game plan for what kind of like menu they were going to have, what kind of business they were going to run. And, it was just very poor planning.
That doesn't explain why he had no money at the end of this movie, because he was a poor investor. Like, he's dumb.
He was pretty bad. Well,
he wasn't, like, it seems like, again, he wasn't the money. He was just a guy with a building and an idea. And then the guy who they were trying to impress was the one whose money they needed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the one who ate the food.
Exactly. Like that was why it was like a huge thing for him. It was like, oh, I am just a guy who could afford this building and you, and I couldn't afford to do anything else. So I needed this guy, otherwise our business is sunk.
And we'll get to it in a second about the other chef who he like not even casually ignores the whole like he's like, yeah, there was someone here before. Like he even mentions it pretty early that we don't even know what happened to this guy. But before we get to that, I want to talk about the food, I guess, part of this. So there's this guard. First of all, we'll call this a movie about witches, spoiler alert, but the entire thing looked like a witch's lair. Like the main building, the side building, the garden, like that was fine. Good production design if that's what you wanted. But I am not a chef. I'm going to say that right now. But it looked like she was just eating random weeds and random some kind of vegetation. Do you think
that's what it turned into?
That's right. So like
she did do that. That's why she was like figuring that she was basically doing what like early settlers had to do and just eating whatever they found and finding out if it was going to kill them or not.
I'm like, you're a classically trained chef, and your first idea is to get this garden that hasn't been tended to in X amount of years and start eating the stuff.
Well, I think that was the like kind of like the witches were kind of like talking to her, and like I think they were like kind of like convincing her like, oh, you have to use the things in the garden, and she was just kind of like, okay, I'll figure it out.
So is that because everything got spoiled? Like she had all this fresh fish.
I think that was definitely part of it. Like I think they were like, again, like I think the magic was meant to like lead her down a path of using the garden.
So the question was, did that stuff really, like, is that one of the witch's powers? Like, did she really spoil that food? Because I was towing the line in this one, which what was in her mind and what was actually happening, right? Like the bugs on her hand.
Yeah, I think the power was mostly to like manipulate her interpretation of reality. Because it seemed like she was constantly like back and forth between seeing like insects and spoiled food. So like, I don't think that other people were seeing that.
Yeah, I don't think that ever occurred. The bugs or the spoiled food.
Yeah, I think it was all just her perception of reality was kind of warped.
Oh, interesting. Because I thought hit by the man. I thought a little bit of both. I thought sometimes, or most of the time, it was in her mind. But then I thought there were some times where it might have been for real. But that's
I don't think so. The only time that we saw food that remained spoiled was when she was the only one that saw it, and I think it was kind of like revealed later that like she kept seeing things that were spoiled, but other people weren't seeing that.
Huh. Okay. And then same thing, like you're seeing on the screen, all this stuff with the bugs and stuff. And when she slapped the spoon out of his hand, obviously that was her imagining the bugs were on.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that was just her imagining the food being spoiled because there was no reason the food should have been spoiled, you know? So it would make sense that it wasn't and that it was just her seeing things.
I'm also trying to think if when her sous chef came, if there was any other moments of like food being spoiled that only she saw.
Was just everything she saw was spoiled when she didn't use the garden's ingredients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she just kept seeing that either like they were spoiled, they had bugs on them, like for whatever reason, like they couldn't use that food, even though everyone else was like, "What are you talking about? Everything here is fine."
Okay. All right. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I thought that was part of it. I'll just say it. There was part of it that was... Because I do have a question about the end about... So she was... The witches, or whatever we want to call them. She was manipulating her before she started eating the food in the garden. Correct?
Yes. She was manipulating her to get her to eat the food in the garden.
Oh, I just looked up the character's name. Her name literally was just Witch. Yeah, Walter, you're right. They just gave up on naming these characters. Sorry.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. So, since you mentioned that, what was the point of, or the motivation or purpose of the witch trying to manipulate her? Because I had no clue. Because at first it's like, okay, maybe she's evil, but then she's not. But like, I just didn't understand the point of the movie at the end.
I don't think she was evil. But I also don't know if she was a great witch. But it seemed like her main goal was just like tending to the garden, to the earth. Like that was like all she really seemed to care about.
Feed the soil, right? She just wanted to
like that was like her main objective. And like if she drove some people crazy trying to get them to do that, then that was fine too.
Because
makes no sense.
Well, see,
this is where, no, it doesn't make sense. It was a bad plan. I don't think she was a good witch. Well, I don't think she was an evil witch, but I don't think she was good at being a witch either.
Well, because that's kind of where I was debating what was the point. So for a while, when I thought the witch wanted her to use the stuff in the garden to like get the other people possessed, like I didn't understand.
No,
why
she just really wanted that garden to flourish. I think that was really it. Like she was like, no, like the earth is important. We need it to like feed the soil, nourish the earth. Like I think that was it. She was just like really into like nature.
Yeah, but that didn't make any sense because she's getting her to make all these dishes, but then how does that feed the earth? Like I thought.
Well, because if she gets her to use these ingredients from the garden, then she's going to need to tend to the garden to keep the ingredients growing.
Okay, I for whatever reason, I thought the point of the movie was for her to get people to, or the chef to bring in people, lure them in, and sacrifice them in the garden, which was the reason why all the food was tasting so well, because it was like some kind of magic, but you needed blood or something. Well, and I was like,
to me, so like the reveal, like at the end, was that like, no, we weren't really like witches doing anything evil. We were actually just like trying to use like the stuff from the earth, like as like medicine. We were just trying to use like natural remedies and stuff. So like, I think they tried to like, at first it was confusing. It was like, oh, are they trying to like be evil and sacrifice people? But I think at the end they were like, no, they just really were in touch with nature and just want these people to also care about nature. And by forcing them to use these ingredients and care about this garden is how they did that, I think.
So,
yeah.
I mean, perhaps.
I mean,
but it brings up a lot of other questions for me, including, like, I thought, did the first chef go nuts because he also ate the stuff from the garden? But I guess he went nuts because he was seeing visions from the switch.
I think it's that. I think her trying to like use the visions to get him to do what she was trying to get this shit. Like I think essentially what it came down to was the witch wasn't trying to do anything nefarious, but because she was forcing these people to have visions, it was kind of driving them insane. And if they fought back against the visions, it just drove them further into insanity. Whereas if they just accepted what the visions were trying to tell them, then they would be okay.
Well, then I have a question to that, which is, I think you're right. It's just horrible writing. So the point was to scare the crap out of these people because she's appearing to them dead in the middle of the night in dreams. And that's supposed to get them to be like, okay, I'm going to listen to everything you're saying.
And again, I think that her approach was bad, but I think that like overall this was what she was trying to accomplish. But I do think that her approach was horrible because, of course, you're going to drive people insane more likely than convince them to listen to you.
Yeah.
It's not a great way to get, it wasn't very persuasive in my opinion.
Because even at the very end, when she finally makes that weird food from the poor rabbit that she, everyone seems to be really happy and like in a trance with this food, and I was like,
I think it was just amazingly delicious food. I think it was just that she had achieved the goal of making incredible, delicious food, so that people were finally like, "Oh my god, this is exactly what I wanted this to be."
She fed a lot of people with that one.
Oh yeah, no.
She did.
So this is just horrible writing because I feel like it's like we're going to write. We have the ending already. It's going to be this crazy big reveal, and then we're just going to go backwards and write in whatever just to get you to that point. Because there's no point to have this big reveal at the end, like, oh, they're not bad, and we're going to be one with nature.
So
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, and also like, I don't know, as a chef, like even when she was like preparing the meal for the dude with the glasses, Dre, like when she was preparing the meal for him after she had used the ingredients from the garden, like she didn't make anything look nice, which is kind of one of the main responsibilities of a chef. Like you need it to look nice and to taste nice.
I thought that was the flip. Yeah.
Yeah,
you're
like
right.
I thought it was very strange that she was like, "Yeah, this looks disgusting, but don't worry about it." It's like, well, that's kind of your job to worry about it if you're selling this place as a fancy place.
I agree, because for what do they say? You taste with your eyes first, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but I thought that was an interesting choice too, where everything did not look good, and that scene was also weird to me because the guy was like a douche. Like, he was such a bad, like, why are you trying? I know you have to impress him, but really you should have been impressing the,
Well, at that point, he was already set on getting rid of her.
That's
and
true.
she was like,
You're
"No,
right.
you need to give me one last chance." So he was already kind of fed up with her at that point because she had botched the first
before
meal,
this
and
meal.
She was acting very erratic. So like you could kind of understand why he was hesitant to put all of his marbles into this basket.
He was hesitant
but it was his fault. But it was totally his fault because there was no ingredients. And she said it like, "Look, we don't have everything we need." He's like, "Nah, we're good. We're just keep going." Like, we don't need to reschedule the meeting.
Well, part of it was because she threw out all the things that like she thought had gone bad.
However,
so there was stuff initially, and she had it prepared, and then she threw all of that away and was like, "Well, I'll just figure it out." And then he was like, "Well, you did have things. I had a plan in place because of that, and then you changed it all, and I can't like convince this dude to just come whenever."
But I did like that. I did like when the snooty chef shows up and is enjoying all the store-bought, like, cheap food, as it were. I thought that was good.
Yeah.
I did like that scene. Well, everyone touched on something that I'm going to talk about. I mean, let's go to the end, because this is gonna be one of my main questions for this particular episode. So, you all touched on it. It starts off with this like ritual right in the beginning, where it looks like this witch is like feeding a heart to some young girl, right? So, for I don't know, at least 80% of this movie, the witch is a bad witch, right? Or they want you to think she's evil. Like, even the little town's kid's like, "Oh, I heard stories. She's an evil person," or which, right? So then, all of a sudden, I don't know, let's just say 85% way through, they flip it. They completely flip your idea on this. Like, I was like, are you supposed to feel for this witch after she like fed this girl and she's like torturing this chef and all this stuff? And I was like, oh no, she's just misunderstood. Like all witches. Right? That's like Salem witch trials, right? They're all misunderstood. Here's my question. In a horror movie, that I feel like, how do you spend the whole movie making you feel a certain way towards this witch and then just flip it? Like, are we supposed to be like, like, I feel like some modern horror movies that I've watched recently do that. Instead of just being evil, they're like, nah, they're just misunderstood, and we'll tell you at the end why. Like, I want to know what your feeling is on that dynamic, specifically in this movie, but, like, some other movies that have, like, a similar dynamic. Like, can't people just be evil evil? I don't know. Do you get what I'm asking? Not in
this culture. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I dislike it. And, I mean, I dislike most modern movies now. So, it's not for me, but it is... kind of like you said, it's kind of just what they've decided to do now. And I think that's often why a lot of the horror movies that get made now do not have, like, they're never going to have a cult following. They're never going to become cult classics, which is oftentimes how horror movies become popular. Like Terrifier is one of the only modern horror movies I can think of that did accomplish that. And you know why? Because the villain is evil, super duper evil, like irredeemable. But like they keep kind of wanting to have their cake and eat it too. It's like, oh, we have this villain, but like, oh, they're not really a villain. It's like, so then what's scary about that? That like, oh, there was some confusion.
I know. I haven't seen Terrifier, but I know. But like even like The Shining, like he wants to kill his family and doesn't stop, and then whatever disappears in the hotel. You can think about the ending, but I'm just saying like, or even like Freddy. Freddy was like a child murderer.
Yeah. The thing that is scary is when an evil character will not stop being evil no matter what. Like, that is scary. What is not scary is that I accidentally misunderstood you, and you're not that bad.
And you just want us to tend a garden. Like, that is so horrifying.
Yes. Like we're trying to figure out the main goal of this, and if the main goal was like, please tend my garden because they killed me, like, okay, great.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm talking about for this specific one. Like, whether it was accomplished or not, like I said, through 80% of this movie, I'm like, all right, this is an evil witch. Let me find out what her goal is. But then all of a sudden, she's not an evil witch, and like her goal's pretty sweet. Like, fix the earth. Like, oh, okay. So, like, maybe this wasn't a horror movie. Hold on. Let me check IMDb. Nope, it's a horror thriller. Thanks, IMDb. Per usual.
Definitely not a thriller. Not a thriller.
So that's kind of my point. My point is, like, there's been a couple of these movies where the villain is just misunderstood. And then, like Ryan said, like, are you really a villain? I mean...
No.
Not really.
I mean, I guess the horror is that your perception of reality is altered. Obviously, you're being driven to insanity. So, like, again, the way that the witch went about it was unpleasant.
Yes.
And
I mean, the guy was eating his finger.
It was disorienting for a good chunk of the movie. But yes, ultimately the reveal is that no, she wasn't trying to hurt you. She just cared about the earth. And it's like, oh, she's not that bad. Okay.
Yeah, she must have been like testing her powers. Like the original chef was eating his own finger, but that was just
made no sense either. But
like, that's why I thought it was the food, because if he's just being like possessed by crazy, like, things he sees, why go to eat your own? Is that the only food that wasn't spoiled? Hey, did I get it?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, maybe he, like, every food that he saw was covered in mold or insects, so there was nothing for meat. So yeah, maybe that's exactly why. I also didn't know why, but that might be it.
I hope everyone hear me. That's why it happened. I'm locking it in.
On your point about this, all of a sudden, let's feel for the evil witch or whatever, or not so evil witch. It's part culture, but I also think it's about these writers today saying, hey, we want to give you this big reveal, and ooh, look at this is what we did. And it's like, well, that was stupid. Like, you should stick with what's been working all these years. Follow the same pattern. It's okay to stay with a simple point A to point B horror film.
It can still be, you're right, it can still be different, but it can still follow some formulas. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be like, oh, well, all the horror movies I grew up with, they were just really mean. Like, Jason just came out of the lake and shit. And I'm like, well, it's true.
And again, like, I feel like often what's scary is when your villain is irredeemably focused on their goal. So, I mean, I guess they kind of had that, but her goal was so not scary that they kind of ruined it. Like, I feel like it's a better twist if it's almost like a situation where she thought that the witch was good and was trying to figure out how to help her throughout, and then at the end the reveal is that, oh no, the witch was evil and you've been helping the evil spirit.
Actually, that would have been better because of even the way the ending was. Because at the ending, they were like copacetic or whatever. She was like winking at the camera, like, me and the witch are now a team.
Yeah, which would have been a scarier ending if the reveal was that the witch was evil, and all the while you were like, oh yeah, like the witch is good. I'm gonna try and figure out how I can like help her and figure out how to solve like what happened to her. But then it flips at the end to like, oh no, she was evil and like has somewhat possessed me, and now I'm evil too. Like, that's scarier.
And then you even have the little the kid from the town character becomes more important because he's maybe no, this happened in the past, and like he can come in and be the audience or whatever you want, for that moment. So yeah.
Can I bring up a point about tending this garden? Was the garden thriving on its own already? Right, because no one was tending it, right?
I mean, it didn't look like it. Look at these like plants.
Yeah, but like, I mean, she was still able to grab all this stuff from it and use it. So it's like, all right, well, something.
But I don't think that much time had passed since the woman died.
That's the other thing. I also thought she was like a Puritan witch, but I don't think it's been that long.
I don't think no. This kid knew her. like not that much time had passed.
Yeah.
Oh,
I also thought.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like this garden wasn't like didn't like obviously it hadn't been tended to for I don't know, maybe a couple of years, but like that's a lot different than not being tended to for decades. Like you're gonna need someone to take care of it.
Because I also thought in the beginning it was like a long time ago. But my dumb movie moment was when you find out that right here when she gets that tunnel, did this old lady carve that tunnel with that little trail herself?
Oh,
I think so. Right? Because
I don't think so. Like she wouldn't have had time to do that like in the moment. Like I feel like that tunnel had to have already been there for some reason.
I hope so because it looked like she was just like starting the tunnel in that flashback.
It looked like she. And were they coming to get her?
That's the other thing. I thought they were coming to get her.
Because that's also misleading. Then it's like this was back in the day when they were gonna burn witches, but then in reality, it's like no, they were just trying to tend to a mental home or elderly care home. I mean,
like,
what was going on?
Unless they thought that
evil and was trying to kill her.
Unless
like,
they
it could have been like this is out in like the middle of nowhere. Like there are still like stories in present day where like you're in a rural enough area that people still have those like outdated mentalities of like they're witches, we have to kill them.
Yeah, I haven't seen on the news in a long time about the witches being burnt, so I was like, oh, so this can't be present time then.
Well,
I guess you're right.
She did have a cool layer that I don't know, but maybe she was prepping for this. But yeah, it was. Yeah. At first, I thought it was unless that girl she fed the. Wait, can we go? The girl in the beginning that she was feeding stuff to, was it garden stuff? It looked like it was like a heart, like of an animal or something.
I mean, it might have been like a rabbit or something, you know.
Why did he hate rabbits so much?
It's a prey animal. They just exist to be prey.
And to mess up the garden. Because she was mad at this. She was mad for a while.
That was the whole point of this movie. The rabbit was messing with this garden. You need to kill that rabbit. That's the
whole
point.
You gotta kill this rabbit.
Actually, that was
ruined my garden.
That was more of a through line than the witch part. Was the rabbit messed up? She finally got the rabbit. It's like a cartoon.
So she's Elmer Fudd this whole time?
She's just trying to kill this rabbit. I mean, she did.
I'm pretty sure she served duck at some point too, right?
Yeah, and then she
duck season, rabbit season.
Yeah, this they were just watching some Looney Tunes cartoons when they were writing this one.
Cutting up that carrot.
I don't know.
Man, what's up, Doc?
So I'm trying to think that was when she was digging her leg, and then she had like all these. Maybe she was like a medicine doctor. Like I was trying to figure out this witch this whole time because I thought. That was
she
really
did allude to like like the herbs in the garden from the earth. We were just using it to like help and heal people, and they just thought that we were crazy for it. I don't know, man.
Maybe they needed. Did they need more townspeople to like? No. I don't know. No,
they just needed to get rid of the script and start over. That's really what they needed.
Because I will say this. The beginning, like, the premise isn't terrible. Like, the premise is okay, right? Opening a restaurant, and she's getting possessed, and you don't know what's in this garden that she's going to feed people. Actually, that'd be one of my last questions. When she fed people from the garden, I thought maybe... Well, I guess you guys explained it to me. I thought that was bad. Like, I thought her eating the stuff from the garden was, like, making her go a little extra crazy. And then she fed it to everybody
I think that's
else.
what they wanted you to think. But in reality... Again, I think the reveal at the end is like, no, nothing nefarious is happening. It's just that I was giving you these visions because I needed your help.
So then there you go. So that goes into like the beginning is a good concept, but I feel like using the garden, the vegetables in the garden as like a tool would have been so much better. And then like, oh man, she's feeding it to these people. What's going to happen to these people? Et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, they were just really delicious, fresh ingredients.
I mean, if you watch right here, when she starts eating it, I think it's coming up right here in the trailer. She starts eating it, and it looks like she's literally just eating leaves. Like,
yeah.
she's
No,
just
at some point, I'm pretty sure she is.
Is just eating some leaves. That
Like, she's literally doing what like people used to have to do back in the day to find out if something was food or poison. You just taste it, and then you just see if it makes you throw up, or if it tastes good.
That's true.
She only had 2 weeks, right? So what she was doing was experimenting with these things. How, like, it didn't make any sense to me, because you eat an herb, you need to wait a little bit to find out if it's going to cause any problems. But it felt like she kept grabbing multiple ones, like a batch of it, and then it's like, well, if nothing happened, then we're good.
Plus, it didn't look good. Like Ryan said, it looked terrible.
Oh yeah, it looked awful.
They didn't have Google either. Like, hey, what is this? And you can Google the herbs. And
that is funny. They didn't have a scene like that. They had a scene where it was all spread out on the table, but they didn't really have a scene where she was like, this is a weird looking thing. Wonder what it is. Yeah.
And
she had the witch's diary or spell book or whatever that she started using. That was kind of interesting.
And I guess because the garden was created by the witch, she didn't put anything terrible in it,
See, that's where, I don't know. It really, the whole point for me comes down to that misdirection at the end. Like, you made me think she was so bad, but then when she's good, everything just became good. The food was good. The possession was good. Like, nothing. I was like, oh, all right. There's a happy ending. It's like Escape to Witch Mountain or something like. It's like, yeah, she's happy. All right. Before we get into our ratings, I want to know if there's anything else that you want to bring up or any other questions besides the fact that there was a scene in the beginning where the sous chef took the quickest pee of all time, and it made me laugh. She's like, I gotta go to the bathroom, and I don't even think there was like 2 sentences before she came back to that table. I just thought it was funny. But no, yeah, we talked a good amount about this, but did we forget anything?
The end scene where she literally is covered in dirt, mud, everything. She looks filthy. She has a dead rabbit. She's swinging around, but people stay to eat her food. How?
No, they come back. Not only do they stay, they come back.
Yeah,
like right here. If you watch, she's dirty and she spits it out, and everyone's freaking out, and then she just builds a bonfire, and they come back to eat her stuff.
But I feel like this is
I
feel like this is a common trope in like movies where like someone is considered to be an artiste of some sort. Like the people that care about and critique them are also like crazy eccentric people that are just interested in things that are insane and disgusting. So like when something is insane, disgusting, and outlandish, that's when they're like, I'm intrigued.
Do you think they all thought this was all the plan?
Well, I think some of them probably thought she was having a nervous breakdown, and they were like, "I'll watch that."
Probably, but like if you think about it, yeah, the food, they show up. The food wasn't really that good. She comes in, it's crazy. She builds a bonfire, and then they come back to her like, "This was part of the art. This was part of the meal."
Yeah.
And then because even what's his name, the guy, whatever, the investor kid or guy, he was like, "Go get the tables and the wine."
Dre.
Like, all right, Dre, let's just set up like a bunch of tables and keep everybody in the middle of the forest.
Yeah,
that's when everyone should be leaving. Like, yeah, I'm good.
Even if they stay, and even if they thought they could have been like, wow, this is really interesting. I mean, you saw it in the girl's face, like the reviewer, like, ooh. But
the
like
one
Ryan
that came
said,
back multiple times too. Like, get out of here. You said the first time, like, oh, you're playing it safe isn't good. Then the second time was really bad, and then you give her 3 tries. Like, come on, get out of here.
It is crazy that woman kept coming back.
I don't like your food, but I'm coming back. It's like
it is funny if I think about it just as a movie, though. It makes sense. Like, at least they kind of wrapped it up. But you're right. There's no way she would really come back. But like, all right, she wasn't crazy enough, and now she's uber crazy, so I like it. Like, that's kind of like that plot point, you know?
You know who's not going to play it safe? An insane person.
Yeah, who's cooking rabbits on the fire that she snapped necks and all kinds of wacky crap.
Looks like they just dug themselves out of a grave.
They did.
Technically, she did.
Technically, she did.
And that's what she looked like. And people are like, I'm into this. Not going to question it. I'm just going to roll with it.
All right. So let's go through the ratings. I think there might be spot on. We'll see what you think. So we have IMDb on average 4.9 out of 10. The critics are a 45%, and the audience is a 51%, which, like we've been talking about, I think the bones of this movie were there. I just think it needed a little more, thought out process here. So, what are your final thoughts? What is your banana rating out of 10? Let us know in the chat what your rating is, and I will start with Walter. We'll start in the same order.
This is definitely a movie that I don't recommend. It was very confusing. The twist, if you want to call it, at the end was definitely not worth it. It's just a very misleading movie. The performances were okay, but it's definitely not worth the hour and 40-something minutes you're going to sit there. It was a rough go. I'm giving this what did I give Salem's Lot? 2.5. I'm going to give it to Sam because they both suck. So.
Oh, wow.
That's my rating. 2.5.
All right, 2.5 it is. What is all right, Ryan? I'm not as low as a 2.5, so
yeah,
I don't even have to change your graphic from last week. Sorry, go ahead.
It just, it missed the mark for me. I think that the performances were good, but not good enough to save that the script and the story just had a lot of issues and I just wasn't invested. I didn't care because it was kind of like Walter said, it was too confusing. And then once it made sense, I was less interested. So,
which is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like once I knew what was going on, I was like, oh, well, I don't care about that.
That's funny.
So that wasn't a fulfilling feeling. Yeah, it just had a lot of work to do to make this a little more enjoyable. Like I said, if they had just flipped it to the point where like our villain was an actual villain, I think that would have made it more interesting. But rather than just, misunderstood.
Wink at the
I'll go with 4 bananas.
All right. I very rarely say this, but I'm just with the critics on this one. I was at 4.5. Like, I mean, that's, I think, what I gave Salem's Lot. I think they were kind of similar, maybe. But yeah, I agree. The twist that they wanted to be a twist was fine. It was a twist, if you want to call it that, but I didn't like it either. Like, I don't know. Don't give me an evil witch and then be like, nah. She's just a fun gardener.
And, don't call it a horror thriller when it's really more of a drama.
Yeah, right? I guess it's more of a drama. Because even, like, I like the new restaurant. I even accepted the weird location. I like the, like, her seeing shit. Like, all that stuff was fine. It just kind of started to fall away, like, halfway through. So that is where I'm at. I don't know. That's all I got.
I'm surprised your ratings both of you are higher than what I would expect. Because especially the movie was pretty bad, but then the conversation we're having is just as bad as the movie. Like we're very reluctant. And we're like, it's not engaging. It's just, it's a bad conversation in my opinion.
I think what saved it for me was I liked the performances. I thought that the actors did a really good job. So like it wasn't like a movie that had 0 redeemable qualities. So like I had to bump it up a little bit for that.
So 2.6.
I was between like a 3.5 and a 4, but I was like, I think it's a.
I mean, yeah.
Because like, I mean, it was fun. There were, aside from the story and the general plot. There were good things, like there were good, well, like I don't know, good looking scenes. The performances were good. Like there were things about the movie that were clearly well put together outside of the story and the plot, which was terrible.
Same thing I thought of last week, like Salem's Lot. Like it was like there was some. I liked a lot of the cinematography. I liked a lot of it, except when I thought about it, the plot was a little. So, put it this way: I said it had potential. I gave it 4.5 for potential and acting and stuff like that.
I'm going to use that for our next one. This movie was horrible. It's a 1, but because of potential, it's a 10. It's a 10.
If they would have listened to some of our correction, if they would have listened to some of the things that we added, like having, like what Ryan said, like let the witch be evil, or like you said, let the garden be evil, whatever. Let the horror be a horror movie. Don't just show me a guy eat his finger.
I just don't think this story was for me, but like maybe if you are interested in this story, you would really like it.
Yeah.
Well, with the ratings, not many people like it. So
fair.
All right. Well, listen, if you agree with us, you should like and share and follow. Still have not found people that disagree with us, but we're always looking for people to disagree with us. So if you disagree with us, like, share, and follow. Come back for another gem. That's what I'm calling them. From now on, they're all going to be gems of movies.
Oh, boy.
That's all I got. So we'll see you next week.
Quack you next time.
Next week, is the next movie going to be full-fledged horror witch movie, since we've been kind of tiptoeing toward witches? Like, no witch, pseudo-witch, and now full-fledged, I'm going to kill you, witch.
Well, on the docket is an action comedy, but I will look for a witch movie for you.
We're going to see Wicked.